Paine. How many people here know who I am?
Thomas Paine.
Well, I just said that, but yes, thank you. Guy in the back is paying attention and has a sense of humor. My kind of crowd. My kind of crowd. Has anybody here ever read any of my work? Common Sense, Rights of Man, Crisis Papers, anything?
Yeah.
All right, a few of you. Well, that's good. That's good, because I will be sharing some of my work here in a minute. Now, the first thing I have to tell you, for most of my life, I was a failure. That is true. I was born in England to, I guess what you would call middle class, merchant class. My father was a master stay maker. Anybody here know what a stay maker is? Anybody? Stay maker? You were here yesterday. Yes, sir.
Has to do with women's garments.
Yes, sir. Corsets. Yeah, what we would call corsets. And it was my father's desire that I follow him in the stay making business.
But you wouldn't stay.
I wouldn't stay. We got two comedians in the crowd today. I love it. I love it. Well, nothing brings more joy than liberty, am I right? That's what I'm here to talk about. That's what I'm here to talk about. But yes, my father desired that I follow him in the business of being a stay maker. You know, it's a respectable trade, guaranteed income, nice little comfortable spot in society. Well, if you know anything about my life or my writings, that is not my style. Oh, I got people leaving already. They must be Tories. We'll just ignore them. But if you know anything about my life or my writings, that is not me. And I would have a lifetime of discomfort and up and down income, which I will talk about, of course. So after I decided not to stay in the business, I wanted to go out to sea. You know, I thought, well, there's some adventure right there. My father said no. He prevented me from getting my first passage on a ship. Like most young men, I defied him and went anyway. I stayed out there 6 months, and the sea life didn't really work out. So I came back to England, still looking for regular work there for a little bit. I tried the stay-making business once again. You know, got married, I had a wife, I had a job, things are looking up, but I had, I guess what you would call itchy feet. I wanted to keep moving. So I tried my hand at teaching. I was a teacher at one of the, I guess you'd call it private schools over in England. It wasn't a bad job, but I wanted more. I wanted more. So I became an exercise officer. Anybody here know what an exercise officer is? Today. Anyway, so I actually had a really good career going with the excise office. And then I got in some trouble. I know, surprising, right? I actually got in trouble for the excise officers weren't treated very well. Obviously, the merchants didn't like us because we were taking a cut of their money. And the British government didn't really like us because, well, they didn't think we were taking enough of their money. And I had my first taste of infamy. I spoke out against the way excise officers were treated. And then my superiors in the British government found out about it. And they said, Mr. Paine, you gotta go. You gotta go. So I was fired from the excise job. And then my wife died. A rough time for me. But I had heard about this great thing happening across the ocean, happening here in the colonies. What will I dare say is called the United States of America. Yeah, I got one person excited. Come on. Yeah. So I came over here. I had already gotten some note, as a rabble-rousing pamphleteer will say, with my writings on the treatment of excise officers. So I got my start in Philadelphia, working with Benjamin Franklin. Everybody heard of him? Everybody's heard of him. Nobody's heard of me. Story of my life. But I started writing, and I wrote a little pamphlet you guys may have read, Common Sense. Anybody here read that one? You, show of hands, a few of you, a couple of you. Well, that's one I will share in a little bit. It was a massive success. We sold about 100,000 copies of that. Oh, I had my first taste of success. Now, the problem with this was, as you will see when I read a little bit, it was controversial. Well, yeah, I know. It's surprising. Surprising. You know, here I was advocating for an independent America. And rights for everybody. And the people in Parliament didn't like that.
No.
I know. Now, this was so controversial, I couldn't even put my name on it. If you look at the first run of Common Sense, it does not have my name on it. Because to speak that way was a little thing we call treason. And I knew that if they found out it was me, I probably wouldn't be living in the colonies very long. So I just put, by an Englishman. I thought, surely they'll never find out.
But when they read it, they knew it was a Paine.
That, yes! I like you, sir. Yes, when they read it, since my writing had already been somewhat notorious in England, they figured out pretty quickly who had written the words. England banned it. You know, it became an illegal book, which is kind of nice in a way. You know who your true friends are when your words are outlawed. However, attached to that, there was a price on my head. So, not the best of circumstances, we'll say. But by this time, the revolution had broken out.
Woo!
Yes. You know, we had tried it the nice way, and I explained this in my presentation yesterday. Somebody asked me in the crowd, well, you know, why were you so incendiary in your writings, and why did you go, you know, fight with the Continental Army? I actually didn't fight with the Continental Army. I was an aide-de-camp to General Greene, so more of a morale booster.
What age were you writing? What age were you
Oh,
writing?
yes. I was in my 40s. Yep. You know, early 40s when I came here and sought my infamy and fortune. Anyways, I was saying, you know, we tried it the nice way. You know, people said, well, why don't you petition Parliament? We petitioned Parliament. Why don't you petition the King? We did that. You know, we held demonstrations in town squares all up and down the seaboard. And did that work?
No.
Did that work?
No.
No. There was only one option left. Pick up the musket and take it to them.
Yeah.
Right. And we did. And I was out in the field with General Greene to see that. And I wrote a series of pamphlets, articles, however you want to phrase it, called The Crisis Papers. Anybody read those? Nope. It's okay. Once again, highly recommended. The first one has one of the best lines I believe I ever wrote. These are the times that try men's souls. And it was a very challenging time. You know, morale was down. It looked like we were going to lose. We couldn't lose, could we?
No.
So the series of articles that I wrote, the Crisis Papers, were designed as a morale booster. Not only it was addressed to the troops in the field, but they were widely distributed for everybody to read. I wanted everybody's morale boosted. To know that we could still win this war.
Yeah.
And we could still win our independence.
Yeah.
You know, and we could still give it to the king.
Yeah, down with the
Need a
king.
king? No, we don't need a king. So, I did that. I got to see the end of the revolution. Yay, rah!
Woo!
We were officially the United States of America. think I was done?
No.
No! I found out I am a man who does not do well unless there's a fight going on that I can get involved in. That's how I was making my name. I thought I'll continue to make that name. So shortly after we won our revolution, I went overseas to France to help in their revolution. Because I believed, you know, they were fighting for the same things we were fighting for. They just helped us out. Trying to return the favor. You know, they wanted to end their monarchy and bring forward a more equitable society, which I fought for here. And when I say equitable, I mean equitable to everybody. I advocated that men, women, everybody was equal. Regardless of race, color, whatever.
Yeah.
Everybody had a place here.
Yeah.
That was also controversial. I'll talk about that in a minute. So I went over to France. While I was over there, I wrote, there was a gentleman in England by the name of Edmund Burke. Anybody read any Edmund Burke? Okay, one person. The rest of you don't read him. He wrote a series of articles advocating for basically Toryism. You know, he wanted, you know, he still believed in monarchy and he thought men should be kept in their proper place. If you've missed the entire first half of this presentation, you will understand that's not something I believe in. Everybody stands on the same place, all equal. So I wrote a book called The Rights of Man, which if you haven't read, once again, highly recommend it. And it was basically my argument against Edmund Burke. Once again, controversial in England, but I wasn't in England at the time, so I really didn't care. I was off helping the French. And I mentioned yesterday in my presentation that the French imprisoned me, and they did. And somebody asked me, well, why would they imprison you? You know, you were fighting for the same things that they were fighting for. That is true. But the French wanted to take it a little farther than I did. The French wanted to behead their king. Now, I am obviously not a fan of the monarchy, but I am also not a believer in bloodshed like that. You know, that would have done nothing but inflame further tension. So I actually argued, well, let me see how to phrase it. I wrote a pamphlet and it was translated before the French Parliament. I do not speak French. Where I said that they should not execute their king. That to execute their king would be an act of barbarism. And the radicals in the French Parliament didn't care for it, so they put me in prison. Now I appealed to what I considered to be my good friend, General Washington. I mean, I had addressed his troops. I thought we were friends. You know, we had won our revolution. We were coming up as a country. I wrote him. I said, General Washington, can you help me out? I'm in prison, and I think they're going to kill me. He said no. Yes, Washington left me there. Now, in a broader perspective, Washington was probably right. You know, we had just started as a country. We weren't really a strong country yet. He really didn't want to get wrapped up in a foreign war after we had just won the revolution, you understand.
With the single country that had supported us.
Very good. So yes, the French had done a lot to support us during our revolution. He really didn't want to anger them, so he left me there. Now, like I said, in the broader scheme of things, it makes sense. Do you think I saw it that way while I was sitting in a French prison with a guillotine visible outside the cell? No. I actually took it very personally, and Washington and I would never mend the fences. You know, we never did mend those fences. But thanks to the advocacy of other great Americans, Benjamin Franklin and James Monroe specifically, they were the ones who helped get me out of jail in Paris, brought me back home, and you know, I lived out the rest of my life, sadly, in a very quiet manner. No, I continue to write, continue to advocate for further equality, further freedom for all Americans, until, I'm going to step out of character real quick, until I died at the age of 72. Can anybody take a guess how many people were there at my funeral when I did finally die? here I am, a great pamphleteer, somebody who has raised the morale that helped build the country, my adopted homeland. Anybody want to take a guess how many people are there? Yes, sir. Ouch! Wow. Not quite that few, but close. 7. I had 7 mourners at my funeral. And I was originally buried in Massachusetts. And then somebody asked me yesterday where Thomas Paine was buried. Originally, step out of character. He was buried in Massachusetts. And then, about 10 years after he had died, there was an admirer of his. It was an English journalist who wanted to take Paine's remains, repatriate them back to England, where he would be welcomed as a heroic writer. The body never made it. They loaded the body onto the ship, and the ship sunk. Thomas Paine's remains are at the bottom of the Atlantic.
He's probably yelling at mermaids. It's fine.
But enough biographical sketches. How about we get into some rousing writing, huh, folks?
Yeah.
So it seems like a few of you have read Common Sense. Which, once again, if you haven't, after this event, or at this event, I don't know if anybody's selling it at this event, but buy it.
Are you still getting residuals?
Yes, please buy it. I'm still getting residuals, and bail is expensive. All right. So I will read a couple of passages from Common Sense. Now this first one, this first passage it'll kind of give you an example of what my mindset was when I first heard about the rebellion in the colonies. All right. Some writers have so confounded society with government as to leave little or no distinction between them, whereas they're not only different but have different origins. Society is produced by our wants, and government by our wickedness. The former promotes our happiness positively by uniting our affections, the latter negatively by restraining our vices. The one encourages intercourse, the other creates distinctions. The first is a patron, the last a punisher. Society in every state is a blessing, but government, even in its best state, is but a necessary evil. In its worst state, an intolerable one. For when we suffer or are exposed to the same miseries by a government, which we might expect in a country without government, our calamity is heightened by reflecting that we furnish the means by which we suffer. Government, like dress, is a badge of lost innocence. The palaces of kings are built on the ruins of the bowers of paradise. For were the impulses of conscience clear, uniform, and irresistibly obeyed, man would need no lawgiver. But that not being the case, he finds it necessary to surrender up a part of his property to furnish the means for the protection of the rest, and this he is induced to by the same prudence in which every other case advises him out of 2 evils to choose the least. Wherefore, security being the true design and end of government, it is unanswerably follows that whatever form thereof appears most likely to ensure it to us, with the least expense and greatest benefit, is preferable to all others. You get what I'm saying? I'm not saying, I don't want to just get rid of the monarchy. I want the least government imaginable. Any government can oppress you. Not just a king. Anybody who says they rule over you can oppress you. Am I right?
Yeah.
Oh, now you're getting rowdy. Now this is my kind of crowd. I don't know about this lot in the middle. They're being awful.
Thomas Jefferson loved you.
He did actually. I'll jump in with that before I read this other section. I had another gentleman asked me the other day what Paine's relationship was with John Adams. And I gave kind of the nice answer. I said, well, they fought for the same end, so in reality it was a lot more vicious. Paine and Adams hated each other.
Well, you were a rabble-rouser.
I know, and a good one at that, thank you. John Adams actually said of Common Sense that it was nothing but a crapulous mess. His words. And then when Adams was president, president, you know, there was a call to impeach John Adams for abuse of power. Just to let you know, there's always somebody trying to impeach the president. And Paine was right that rather than impeach him, they should keep Adams just to make fun of him. I mean, they were at each other's throats. Now, Jefferson was one of the few other founding fathers who found great value in Paine's work. If you look at the inspiration for the Declaration of Independence, which, as we all know, Thomas Jefferson wrote, a lot of his inspiration actually came from Common Sense, which was published 2 years, I believe, 2 years before the Declaration of Independence was written. So, I know a lot of people have this ideal of our founding fathers, oh, they were all united in one vision. No, they fought all the time. But yes, good point. Yes, Jefferson was one of the few that saw a lot of admirable things about Paine. A lot of them, Adams being the example, and the reason that Adams had such an issue with Paine's writings, you know, Adams believed in, I guess, what you would call a restrained republic, you know, balance of power, only certain people can vote, only certain people can have a say.
Firm sense of order.
Yes. Paine was like, no, forget that. This, you know, if we're going to start something new, let's start something new. Everybody should have a right to vote. You know, whether you have property or not. You know, that was the big argument when we were putting together the Constitution. You know, who gets to vote? And Adams, like a lot of the founding fathers, believed only land-owning gentry males have the right to vote. And Paine believed that that was, I don't know, kind of backstabbing the ideas of the revolution. You know, that if we're going to fight for equality, no, we fight for equality. So, but yes, good observation. Now I will read one other bit from Common Sense, and then I have some other writings of mine that I wanted to share that I think you will like. This is my opinion of the monarchy and of what they call hereditary succession. Mankind being originally equals in the order of creation, the equality could only be destroyed by some subsequent circumstance. The distinctions of rich and poor may in great measure be accounted for, and that without having recourse to the harsh, ill-sounding names of oppression and avarice. Oppression is often the consequence, but seldom or never the means of riches. And though avarice will preserve a man from being too necessarily poor, it generally makes him too timorous to be wealthy. But there is another and greater distinction for which no truly natural or religious reason can be assigned, and that is the distinction of men into kings and subjects. Male and female are the distinctions of nature, good and bad, the distinctions of heaven. But how a race of men came into the world so exalted above the rest and distinguished like some new species is worth inquiring to, and whether they are the means of happiness or of misery to mankind. Thank you. You know, that's what boiled down my argument against monarchy. You know, as somebody who believes in a democratic government, why should we bow to this guy because of who his father was or who his mother was? Did he not come into the world the same way we did? What makes him better? Nothing. That's right. I got one person here who's with me. Where's everybody else?
Sleeping.
That's right. Now don't call me boss. That sounds like ruling, which I just spoke against. However, if anybody here is full of fire and vinegar and would like to volunteer, I think there's some militia around here recruiting. Pick up your arms, men
Yeah.
and women. And women. I like you. You look like you've already volunteered. Is that yes? No? You confused? Leave us, sir. Ah! The French, give it up for our help.
Woo!
Merci. Now, what most people seldom remember about me, I mean, I'm remembered as a great pamphleteer, great rabble-rouser, But I found a better way to get my feelings to the masses was through poetry. You say, Paine was quite an accomplished poet in his time. And I thought, before we got to the question and answer section, I would share some of my favorite verse, if you would like.
Yeah.
Bring it on. Let's hear it.
Alright, so I have two that I will share with you. This one is called, Oh, Could We Always Live in Love? Oh, could we always live in love and always be sincere? I would not wish for heaven above, my heaven would be here. Though many countries I have seen, and more may chance to see, my little corner of the world is half the world to me. The other half, as you may guess, America contains, and thus between them I possess the whole world for my pain. I am then contented with my lot, and yet no happier be. For neither world I'm sure has got so rich a man as me. Then send no fiery chariot down to take me off from hence, but leave me on my heavenly ground. This prayer is common sense. Let others choose another plan. I mean no fault to find. The true theology of man is happiness of mind.
Nice. I like it.
Get you all fired up. I hope. I think I got somebody too fired up. She's leaving. This one is called Liberty Tree. In a chariot of light from the regions of day, the goddess of liberty came. 10,000 celestials directed the way, and hither conducted the day. A fair budding branch from the gardens above, where millions with millions agree. She brought in her hand as a pledge of her love, and the plant she named Liberty Tree. The celestial exotic struck deep into ground like a native it flourished and bore. The fame of its fruit grew the nations around to seek out this peaceable shore. Unmindful of names or distinctions they came, for freemen like brothers agree. With one spirit endued, they one friendship pursued, and their temple was the Liberty Tree. Beneath this fair tree, like the patriarchs of old, their bread and contentment they ate. Unvexed with the troubles of silver and gold, the cares of the grand and the great. With timber and tar they old England supplied, and supported her power on the sea. Her battles they fought without getting a grunt, for the honor of Liberty Tree. But hear, O you swains, 'tis a tale most profane, how all the tyrannical powers, kings, commons, and lords, are uniting amain to cut down this guardian of ours. From the east to the west blow the trumpet to arms. Through the land let the sound of it flee. Let the far and the near are unite with a cheer in defense of our Liberty Tree. If anybody have any questions, I will now take questions. Please ask questions. Yes, sir.
How did you make a living during this time period?
During the time I was in the colonies?
Yeah.
Yes. Excellent question. Obviously, as I said, Common Sense had been a great success. I was able to collect royalties on that.
Now, did that go through Franklin, or how did he print Common Sense?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He was my main printer.
Was he in trouble with the British as you were?
No, because it wasn't his name on it. So he had a little bit of a cushion there, if you will. But in addition to that, I wrote other pamphlets as well, addressing common concerns of the colonists. Not quite as incendiary as Common Sense, but enough to make a living. And then, of course, when I became an aide-de-camp to General Greene, I drew a salary from the Continental Army. So, excellent questions. Any other questions, please? Yes, my fine French friend. Yes.
What's your reason why you
That particular line, or the crisis papers as a whole? Excellent. I talked about that a little bit. When the first crisis papers were written, it was a whole series. I think we did 8 of them, which you should be able to find in your local library, all handily bound into one volume, so you don't have to decide about it. But in my time being in aide-de-camp, I had seen the morale of the troops starting to drop. You know, we had some victories at first, but the British Army is a tough army, I gotta say. I know we got a move, but, you know, and in particular, you know, you gotta remember, had the harsh winter, the first harsh winter of the war, and winter will always bring troops morale down. You know, there's not a lot of action, we're freezing, we're cold, we're hungry. So that particular line that you're referring to, which I absolutely love, I still think, I mean, everybody knows number 6, I think that one line alone could be my legacy. You know, when I spoke of these are the times that try men's souls, I was referring very much to that. So I talked about the summer soldier, the sunshine patriot, those who will only stand with us. Hold on just a second. We're waiting for the fighting drummers. Let's give it up for the fighting drum corps, baby.
All right.
In that very line, I refer to the summer soldier and the sunshine patriot, those who will only stand with us when we have the victories, when it looks like victory, those who will not stand with us when the time is tough. And this is before the French agreed to help us. I'm not blaming you. You know, so yes, good question. You know, I was addressing those. I said, look, we're in a bind here. Times are tough, but we can still win. Just because the chips are down doesn't mean the fight is over. So, excellent question. Of course, I hope I answered. Any other questions, please? Yes, ma'am. Formal education, very good. I haven't been asked that yet. Thank you. Well, as I mentioned, when I was born, you know, I was born in England. My father was a staymaker, so I was, like I say, not poor, but kind of a middle merchant class. So I did attend school. I had obviously not as high of a formal education as those of the wealthy class, but I did receive enough education to be a teacher myself. So I had, I'm going to step out of character for a minute, I'm trying to think of what a good way to put it in modern terms. Paine would have had probably the equivalent of what we would call a high school education. He had the basic education available to those of the middle class. Yes, excellent question. Any other questions, please? Yes, in the back.
How did your family feel about you being an American?
Oh boy. Well, my father was obviously disappointed because I didn't follow into the family business. Now, he passed away before I really became a wanted man, we'll say. Along with my mother, and unfortunately my wife had died when I was still in England, so I can't really say. They didn't really live to see a lot of it. I know my father really wanted me to follow in the business, so he was disappointed that I took a more independent path, we'll say. Good question.
Did you remarry?
No, I never did. My wife died. I was brokenhearted, and honestly, with her passing, how to put this? I put all the passion I would have had into another wife, another romance, another family. That's where I put my passion for that into the cause, into the revolution. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. She died without children. We were never blessed.